All right. Snow was an issue for the 49ers on Sunday night. I mean, every once in a while you'll see one of these snow games where it's clear that one team is comfortable in the snow and the other one is not. What is this stuff? What's going on? Why can't we run? The 49ers had a rough time, and making it rougher, Christian McCaffrey and Jordan Mason, top two options at tailback, both heading to injured reserve. McCaffrey has a PCL injury that is expected to keep him out up to 6 weeks, and that likely means we're not going to see him again because they're going to have to really make something happen to have a chance to get to the playoffs at 5-7, and without their best player, arguably, a Christian McCaffrey. There it is. That's the play that a couple of snaps after he hit the knee hard when he was tripped up on what looked like it was going to be a touchdown. He gets tripped up just as he's about to break free. Knee hits. He gets the ball a couple of snaps later, and we didn't know what it was like. Did he blow out his Achilles? Like, what caused him to go down? When he jogged off the field afterwards, it's like, well, it's probably not that, but something wasn't right in the knee, and now he's going to be gone at least for the next 4 games by virtue of being placed on injured reserve. But I don't think we're going to see him again this year unless they catch fire. And they're 2 games behind first place in the NFC West, but Sims and I were talking about this yesterday. You got to climb over 2 other teams to get there, and those teams are going to be playing each other. So it's not like all 3 of the teams in front of you are just going to fall apart. If one of them loses, the other one's going to win. You've got these divisional games down the stretch, so it's going to be hard to jump over 2 guys and catch the Seahawks at first place in the division.
Especially when you look at their last 2 games. You play against the Green Bay Packers and you play against the Buffalo Bills. I know those are good teams, but now you're going to be playing against your division opponents who are looking at that spot and saying, it's ours. So it just doesn't get any easier. This has been a tough season for them. And, I think for Christian McCaffrey, no one really talks about that. When a guy's hurt, I think the thought is all like, well, they'll be good when they get back. But when you miss so much time, it's hard. Your body doesn't get to go through the normal things you go through of preparing your body to go play a football season. And I think when you look at Christian McCaffrey when he came back, it seems like he did everything he possibly could to have his body ready to go. But it reminds us that nothing gets you prepared for playing football quite like playing football. You have to do that. And I know we see cases of guys who sit out and they come back and they do well, but that's usually an anomaly. It doesn't happen often. And for this team, they've had so many guys banged up throughout the season. It just feels like they have a big game, they win, then another game goes by, and it's like, oh, another loss. It's just they can't kind of get out of this thing this year for them as a team, whereas injuries and dealing with different things. And like you said, to make matters worse, you feel like you're getting going, and you get a Sunday night in Buffalo where it's snow. It's like the worst conditions you can possibly play in, and it's the conditions that Buffalo strives in. So just a tough break for this 49ers team.
Kyle Shanahan made that point last week when he was getting some questions about Christian McCaffrey's performance in his 3 games back. No touchdowns, 150 rushing yards in 3 games. It's like when you miss pretty much all the training camp, when you don't play at all in the preseason, when you've missed 8 weeks to start the season, you're not going to be in MVP form. He was the Offensive Player of the Year last year with 21 touchdowns. He finishes 2024, unless he does make it back for the last game of the regular season, he finishes 2024 with 0 touchdowns. And, Devin, I feel like at some level for the 49ers, it's a combination of all the stuff that goes into playing deep into January as often as they have, dating all the way back to 2019. Now, that team has turned over significantly since then, but the nucleus, the veteran nucleus, the guys who kind of came of age in San Francisco, and it feels like it's coming to an end for them, it's just too much to keep banging your head and having the door not fall down. You can't win a Super Bowl. You're having extra wear and tear on your body. And this year is just like 2020, the year after they lost to the Chiefs in the Super Bowl the first time around. Too many injuries. It reaches a critical mass, and you can never get your guys healthy at the same time to go out and really get on a run. And they're up against it now. They've got – I don't even know that they can lose one more. When you look at what's going on in the NFC with the Vikings and the Packers behind the Lions in the NFC North, the only spot they could really have a shot at is the 7th seed, and they're 3 games behind the Commanders at this point, 2.5 games behind the Commanders, because the Commanders have played 13 and the 49ers have played 12. That's 2.5 games is a lot to make up with 5 games left.
Yep. And it's a reminder, too, of how hard it is to be good and at the top of the league year in and year out. How we're watching Kansas City do that now. Like, that's not an easy task to be able to avoid injuries every year to your key players, to be able to turn it on and be ready to play every single year when you know you're not finishing until the end of January or February, year after year. So your offseason program comes faster. Like, all of these things, your offseason is totally different. So when you do that year after year after year after year, and you're always in that spot, teams get used to that. I mean, people get used to seeing you there, but they don't realize how hard that is. And in New England, we were able to do that. And every season kind of flowed a little differently, but it just wasn't easy. I remember the first time in 19, when we lost in the wild card round, feeling lost, like, damn, like, we haven't ended the season in the beginning of January and forever. It had been, I think, for me since 2010 was the first time, that was the other time that I lost in the divisional round compared to being in the AFC Championship or the Super Bowl. Like, that break, as much as it sucked of not being there, it felt like, man, like, I didn't know how good this felt to have more time to get ready for the season. So for San Fran, I'm hoping, I don't think they're going to make the playoffs this year. Maybe this year is a year where they kind of get to reset, everybody's bodies get to get back, and you can still have this nucleus of guys make one last run, or maybe a few years run into the playoffs maybe. But they had a good run, and it seems like for this year, definitely it's just not going to happen.
We need to take a break, but that is a testament to the greatness of the organization that the Patriots continued every year to turn the page, to forget about last year, to find a way to get everybody ready to go. There was never any carryover, and that was the Belichick attitude. I don't want to talk about last year. We're not talking about last year. Last year is over. I suspect it drove him crazy that it took so long to do the ring ceremony. Let's get this in the rearview mirror. As soon as the last piece of confetti falls, it's on to next year, because if you spend any of your time thinking about last year, you make it harder to do it. And that's got to be one of the ingredients. He would talk
to you as an up-and-coming free agent at the Super Bowl party. I remember he came up to me. He was like, I'm looking at Bill like, I'm not talking about free agency. We just won the Super Bowl. That's how fast his mind switched.
Hi, it's Mike Florio. Thanks for watching PFT on YouTube. Hit subscribe for the latest news and analysis from Pro Football Talk.